now we're here at the Washington Crossing on the Delaware at the Visitor Center. And this is Guy. Guy, tell us, we are now standing here at this monument. This is the very spot where Washington crossed the Delaware. Tell us a little bit about that.
This monument, to be clear, as it says near this spot.
Near the spot.
There's not one particular location where, per se, Washington or any one of his troops crossed. Keep in mind, there's 2,400 of them, so there's quite a few guys to stuff in one area. They crossed basically in between where the island is here and then the bridge, which is about 200 yards downstream. So in this area is where they crossed. This monument was erected in 1895 by the Bucks County Historical Society. However, there is a bit of a catch with it, and that it's moved several times over its stay here in Washington's Crossing. It was actually originally about 100 yards downstream of here in the front yard of one of the houses on the property. But since it has been moved upstream, this is closer to where we believe the point of embarkation would have been. In other words, that's where the men would have physically gotten on the boats.
We're on the boat.
We're on the boat. We're gonna row.
We're gonna row. We're rowing across the Delaware, right?
Yes, just like Washington and his crew.
Okay, awesome.
I'm gonna get an oar.
Okay.
One for you, one for me.
Rowing.
11 people crew just rowing all night long.
All night long.
Not for me.
Hi everyone, we are right here down at Washington Crossing, and here I am with George Washington. Tell us what happened right here.
This ground you're standing on today is the embarkation point for our crossings in December of 1776 when we crossed the Delaware River here and took the Hessian outpost at Trenton. We then brought our 900 prisoners back across the river and took them to Newtown and stayed here for a few more days, and then went back again for the second battle at Trenton. This time we were up against British regulars, and we were able to at least hold them at the Assunpink Creek before we moved away towards Princeton. But the ground you're standing on today is certainly part of that embarkation point for 2,400 troops that were well enough to make the trip across. Our watchword for this crossing is victory or death. No one will cross our lines without the proper sign and countersign. Commanders, prepare your troops for the boats.
And this is 8 foot wide, so it's about a 6 to 1. How many of these crossed? They don't know how many. There were about 100 to 125 on the river at any one time. Because that was winter, and some of the smaller boats didn't run the whole length from the Lehigh to Philly.
Daisy, where are you going?
Look at this, we're in the boat. This is where they would row across the Delaware. They have compartments in this boat. This is probably where they kept their guns, ammunition,
Food?
maybe food, I'm not sure. But there's no comfort at all. Could you imagine just rowing across the Delaware on this boat?
So we were on the boat just a minute ago, and just imagine December 25th, 26th, 1776, right there on the water.
Imagine the water was obviously higher and so much colder, so you can just imagine what the conditions were for the crossing. It's just part of history.
Falling far behind. What's the problem?
General, the march from Newtown was treacherous. The men are cold, tired, sick. They're doing their best. The cannons, the horses, they all got stuck in the mud. We're trying. I know we will make Trenton.
Some of the items that are here. We do have a museum here. Tell us, this museum was just recently redone and reopened?
Yes, it was redone, perhaps ironically, shortly before COVID. And it features an exhibit on what we call the 10 Crucial Days of the American Revolution. And that covers Washington's Crossing, the first and second Battle of Trenton, and then the Battle of Princeton. And those three battles, along with the crossing, really shaped the American Revolution. Without those battles, we would not have had other important events in our history like Valley Forge, or even winning the American Revolution. So we call this the first major turning point of the American Revolution. and that exhibit helps explain a bit of that as to how that all took place.
Great, we're gonna go inside and check it out. Gabby, take a look at this. This is the condition of the river in the winter, what it would have looked like when they crossed.
Amazing.
Tell us about, we have here the headstone of James Moore.
Yep, so James Moore was a captain lieutenant in the New York State Artillery. He was encamped on the Thompson Neely House, which is a part of the Washington Crossing Historic Park here. It's about 4 miles north of here. And he died on Christmas night prior to the crossing. He was, to be clear, he was not in the crossing. But he is one of the, there's several men who died in the Thompson Neely House and around the Thompson Neely House. Estimates go anywhere from 25 to 60 men. And they're buried throughout the property. However, none of them are identified, save for Captain Lieutenant James Moore. And part of the reason for that is Captain Lieutenant James Moore was an officer, so they were naturally a bit more important than the rank and file.
Right.
But also, he was the second in command to Alexander Hamilton. Alexander Hamilton at the time was the commander of the New York State Artillery, and after his second in command died, as you might imagine, he sort of noticed that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And he sent a letter to James Moore's parents informing them as to his passing. And also later on, when he wrote a letter to the New York State Legislature, he basically noted that James Moore was a good officer and sort of implied that without James Moore and without him, because he was becoming Washington's aide-de-camp at the time, that the New York State Artillery should probably be stood down because the other officers he thought were not fit for the command.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Gabby.
Women that followed the army were called camp followers. They were sisters, wives, daughters, mothers that took care of different duties such as laundry, cooking in the camp, cleaning, and nursing the troops.
From crossing the Delaware to victory at Princeton, the tide of the war has turned.
The rebel soldiers begin to have more confidence. An unnamed British colonel.
They are now become a formidable enemy, Colonel William Harcourt.
Today, at Washington Crossing State Park, you can stand where the Americans landed, track the route to Trenton and on to Princeton. Here, and throughout New Jersey, lie the crossroads of the American Revolution.
The Mercer Buy Local Connection, see where we're going next.